Hello everybody! Today we're going to be talking about the unit circle in radians, and your assignment for this week, the primary assignment, will be to fill in the unit circle using radians, and you'll have a website very similar to the one you did last week, where you'll complete it, take a screenshot, and upload it. And so what we're going to do is start with our unit circle from last week, which has degrees on it, and we're going to convert all of these degrees to radians. And with 0, I want to remind you, first of all, that to convert to radians, we just multiply by pi over 180, and then we simplify. And so in this case, 0 times anything is just 0. And so 0 degrees is the same as 0 radians. And so I just write it like that, and there's no unit. The fact that there's no unit tells me that it's a radian. And then I'm going to convert 30 degrees into radians. I'm going to multiply it by pi over 180, and then I'm going to simplify. I'm actually going to do some cross-canceling. Oh, you can't see what I'm writing. There we are. I'm going to do some cross-canceling. 30 goes into itself once. It goes into 180 6 times, so I get pi over 6. And then I write that here, 30 degrees, and I write pi over 6 next to it. I'm going to convert 45 degrees to radians right here. I'm going to multiply times pi over 180, just like we did before spring break. And then again, I'm going to do some cross-canceling. Now, 45 does go into 180, but let's say that you don't know that. You can use some other numbers. For example, I know that 5 goes into 45 and it goes into 180, and I also know that 9 goes in. I'm going to use 9 because it's easier. 9 goes into 45 5 times. It goes into 180 20 times. Well, 5 and 20 also reduce. 5 goes into itself once. It goes into 120 4 times, and so I get pi over 4. And so that is the same as 45 degrees, and I'm going to label that pi over 4. Then I'm going to convert 60 degrees into radians. And again, I know 60 goes into itself once and into 183 times, and I get pi over 3. And so I write pi over 3. And I'm going to continue doing that for all the different angles around the unit circle. Eventually, you're going to start seeing a pattern. Here's 90. I go to here and do 90. And 90 goes into itself once. It goes into 180 twice, so I get pi over 2. And I write that next to 90, pi over 2. Now, a shortcut to do some of the rest of these, and it works for some, but not for others, just depends on how well you know your multiples, is I know that 120 is twice 60. 60 times 2 is 120, which means 2 times pi over 3 is going to be 120. And so 120 is the same as 2 pi over 3. Here is the actual arithmetic for it. I know that 60 goes into 120 twice, goes into 183 times, and so I get 2 pi over 3. There's your proof right there. For 135, again, I'm going to multiply times pi over 180. And I have to think about what numbers go into 135 and 180. Actually, it turns out the 45 goes into 135. But if you don't know that, you can use a smaller number. I know the 45 goes into 135 3 times, and 45 goes into 180 4 times. So I get 3 pi over 4. 150 is 5 times 30. So it's going to be 5 times pi over 6, or 5 pi over 6. The proof of that is here. 150 times pi over 180. I can reduce. I know that 30 goes into 15 5 times, and it goes into 86 times, and so I get 5 pi over 6. And that's what I labeled at the top. And then 180 is actually 2 times 90. So it's going to be 2 times pi over 2, which is going to give us pi. But I'm going to do the proof of that. I have 180 times pi over 180. And my 180s cancel, 1 and 1, and so I just wind up with pi. And so I'm going to write that here, pi. And I'm going to continue going around and finding what these different angles are in radians. 210, which is 7 times 30, will be 7 times pi over 6. And 240 is actually 4 times 60, so it's 4 pi over 3. 225 is a little trickier. I have to think about 45 times what is 225? 45 times 5, so I get 5 pi over 4. 270 is 3 times 90, so 3 pi over 2. It's basically just that number, that multiple, times whatever the radian degree is, radian measure. 300 is 5 times 60, so 5 pi over 3. 330 is 11 times 30, so that's 11 pi over 6. And then 315, what is that going to be? Well, it turns out that 315 is actually 7 times 45, and so it's 7 pi over 4. And the last one is 360. Well, 360 is 2 times 180, and so that is 2 pi, which is what we would get if we were to find the circumference of the unit circle. We would actually get 2 pi. The reason that we would get 2 pi is that it's 2 pi times the radius. Well, if the radius is 1, then that's 2 pi right there. I'm going to write it like this so you can actually read what I have on here. And so 0 and 2 pi are the same as 0 and 360. And this is the unit circle in radians. Like I said, you're going to have an assignment where you are going to be finding the unit circle angles in radians, just like you did for degrees, where you have to click on the little, gives you the radian measure, and you have to click the little circle next to the angle, and then you'll probably have some IXL or some other type of practice filling these kinds of things in. And if you have any questions, please come to our class meetings. They are on Tuesday at 11:15, and Thursday, I'm backwards. It's Tuesday at 2:15 and Thursday at 11:15. So if you have any questions, come to our class meetings, Tuesday at 2:15, Thursday at 11:15. The links are in Classroom under class meeting times topic. And you can also private message me or email me if you have any other questions. And I hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful week. And I look forward to hearing from you soon.